Hey there, and welcome to this deep dive into the world of spiritual gifts.
It's a topic that has fascinated and puzzled people for centuries.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
And, we've been getting a lot of questions about this lately.
It seems to be on a lot of people's minds.
It does.
Yeah.
So today we're going to dive deep into how this whole idea of spiritual gifts plays out, within a community.
Mm-hmm.
And how to understand our own strengths in that context, right?
Yeah.
So let's go straight to the source, the book of Corinthians in the Bible,
Okay.
where Paul, he really talks about spiritual gifts in detail.
Right from the start, Paul makes it clear that he doesn't want people to be confused about these gifts.
Yeah, he's like, come on, guys, let's talk about this.
Almost as if he's anticipating all the questions and maybe even some of the disagreements that might come up.
It's almost like he's saying, hey, it's okay to be curious about this. Let's have an open conversation.
Exactly.
No need to feel like you need to have all the answers already.
Yeah, and I think something that's really crucial to remember throughout this whole conversation is that all these gifts, no matter how different they might seem, come from that same source, the Holy Spirit.
That's a really important point.
It's not about our individual talents or abilities,
Right.
but about this shared connection to something much bigger than ourselves.
And he really drives that point home when he talks about the ability to declare Jesus as Lord.
Right.
Saying that it comes directly from the Holy Spirit.
It's the foundation on
Yeah.
which all of these gifts are built.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got all these different gifts, but they all come from the same source.
Mm-hmm.
So then how does that actually work in practice?
Well, Paul uses this powerful analogy of the body to explain this.
That's such a classic analogy,
Yeah.
right?
It really captures this idea of unity and diversity.
The body has so many different parts,
Yeah.
each with its own unique function.
But all are essential for the body to work properly.
Right. You can't have the hand saying to the foot, I don't need you.
Exactly.
Like they all need each other.
They all play a vital role.
And here's where it gets really interesting. When we apply this to the early church, Paul isn't just talking about some abstract theory.
Right.
He's talking about how this actually played out in a real community.
Yeah. What might this have looked like in practice?
I mean, can you paint us a picture?
Sure. So imagine a community where someone might have the gift of prophecy, speaking words of encouragement or guidance at just the right time.
Wow.
Or someone with the gift of healing, offering comfort and care to those who are sick.
I mean, it really makes you wonder what those gatherings must have been like.
It must have been pretty amazing.
With all these gifts kind of coming together and contributing to the life of the community.
Yeah, and it's important to note that these gifts weren't seen as a way to show off or to gain power over others.
Right.
It was always about serving the community, using your gift to strengthen and build up the body as a whole.
So it all comes back to that idea of unity, right?
Absolutely.
With everyone kind of contributing their own piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, think about yourself for a moment. Have you ever felt like your skills or your contributions weren't important enough?
Oh, I think we've all been there.
Yeah, feeling like you don't have anything special to offer.
Like I'm not good at anything.
But this passage really challenges that mindset. It says that every single part of the body, even the parts that we might see as weaker or less noticeable, are actually vital.
Yeah.
And they have a really important role to play.
It's kind of like, how people say every part of the tapestry contributes to the overall beauty.
Exactly.
So let's actually dive into some of those specific gifts that Paul lists, because he mentions quite a few.
He does.
Wisdom, knowledge, faith, healing, miracles, prophecy, discernment, tongues, interpretation.
Yeah, it's quite a list.
I mean, it's like he's saying, hey, look, the Spirit works in so many different ways through so many different expressions.
Yeah, there's no one right way
Yeah.
to experience or to express the Spirit.
And there's one on that list that I find particularly intriguing.
Oh, yeah.
Discernment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what did that look like in the early church?
Yeah.
And are there any modern day parallels that we can kind of draw from that?
That's a great question. So in the early church, discernment was absolutely crucial. Think about it.
Yeah.
There were so many new ideas and beliefs circulating, and it wasn't always easy to tell what was true and what was false.
Right.
So someone with the gift of discernment could help the community to kind of navigate that.
It's like having a spiritual BS detector.
Exactly,
No,
to
okay.
see clearly
Yeah.
and to make wise decisions.
That was about protecting the community from harmful influences and being true to their core beliefs.
Exactly. And you know what's really fascinating is that in our world today, discernment is just as important as ever.
I was going to say,
Think about it.
it's almost more important now
Right.
than ever.
With all the information that's constantly bombarding us online.
And how do you know what's true?
Right.
What's not?
Exactly.
You know,
So someone with a strong sense of discernment can cut through all that noise. They can spot fake news. They can recognize manipulation.
and not fall prey to all those scams that are out there.
Exactly.
So, you know, it really highlights how these gifts aren't just about these spectacular miracles,
Right.
but about everyday wisdom and insight.
Yeah.
You know?
It's the ability to see things clearly.
Yeah. Okay. And that leads us to another really important point that Paul makes, because he talks about how even the parts of the body that we might consider, you know, weaker or unpresentable
Mm-hmm.
are actually vital and should be treated with honor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty radical idea, especially in a culture that often prioritizes strength and beauty and outward appearances.
It really challenges us to rethink our assumptions about what's considered valuable.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do we overlook or undervalue the people who are working behind the scenes?
Quiet contributor.
Yeah, the people who might not have the flashiest skills, but who are absolutely essential to the community functioning well.
It makes me think of all the, you know, caregivers,
Yeah.
the teachers, the volunteers.
All the unsung heroes
Yeah.
that really hold things together.
And this passage is saying, you know what we need? To honor those contributions.
Yeah.
We need to see the dignity and worth in every role, regardless of how society might view it.
It's about recognizing the inherent value in every single person.
Yeah. Such a powerful message about, you know, valuing everyone's contribution
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing the importance of every part of the body.
And speaking of community, Paul really emphasizes this idea of unity and mutual concern.
Yeah.
He says that the goal is to have no division in the body,
Yeah.
but for each member to genuinely care for one another.
He uses that really vivid image of, you know, if one part suffers,
All the parts suffer with it.
yeah, and if one part is honored,
All the parts rejoice with it.
right, it's just like this beautiful picture of, you know, empathy and shared feeling.
It's about being connected,
Yeah.
actively participating in each other's joys and sorrows.
It makes me think about those times when I've seen communities come together, you know, in a crisis,
Mm-hmm.
offering support and comfort to those who are hurting.
Yeah, and I think it's equally important to consider those times when that unity is lacking,
Right.
when there's division or a lack of empathy for those who are struggling.
Look, what can we learn from those experiences?
Yeah.
I think those moments of disconnect can really teach us a lot about how to build stronger, more supportive communities.
Absolutely. Now let's move on to the next section where Paul starts talking about structure and leadership within the early church.
Okay.
He lists all these various roles like apostles, prophets, teachers, and this is where things can get a little bit more complex because different denominations have different interpretations of these roles
Right.
and how they actually function within the church.
So we're not going to get into all the nuances today, but can you give us kind of a brief overview of some of the main interpretations out there?
Sure, some denominations emphasize a more hierarchical structure with certain roles like apostles or bishops holding greater authority, whereas others emphasize a more egalitarian approach, where all members are seen as having equal standing and the emphasis is on shared leadership.
So there's a lot of diversity
There is,
in how this plays out in practice.
for sure.
But I think the core idea, as we've been discussing, is that all these roles, all these gifts,
Mm-hmm.
they're meant to serve the community as a whole.
That's right. The ultimate question is not about who's in charge,
Right.
but about how we're all using our gifts, our talents, and our passions to build a community that reflects love and unity.
And that brings us to the final point for this part of our deep dive.
Yeah,
Because Paul ends this section with a really interesting statement.
he does.
He says, strive for the greater gifts.
Yeah,
What does he mean by that?
that is the question.
I mean, is he suggesting that some gifts are inherently better than others?
That's a question that has been debated for centuries.
For centuries.
Yeah. Yeah, some scholars believe that Paul is actually suggesting a hierarchy of gifts.
Interesting.
Pointing to the fact that he goes on to talk about love as the greatest gift of all in the very next chapter. So maybe what he's saying is that, you know, while all these gifts are important,
Yeah.
using them with love is what really matters.
I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's not just about having the gift.
It's how you use it.
It's about how you use it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Others argue that it's not so much about like a ranking system
Okay.
as it is about the impact of the gift.
Mm.
So maybe a greater gift is one that benefits a wider community
Mm.
or addresses a more pressing need.
So, for example, like if you have the gift of healing and you use it to alleviate suffering,
Yeah.
that might be considered a greater gift than, say, the gift of administration,
Right.
which might primarily benefit like a smaller organization or something.
That's a great example.
Yep.
And then there's also this idea that the greatness of a gift lies not in the gift itself, but in how it's used.
Right. So it's not about the gift. It's about the heart behind it.
Exactly.
Right.
Are you using your gift to serve others, to build up the community, to promote love and unity?
Or are you using it for your own personal gain or to elevate yourself above other people?
Yeah, it's like that old superhero saying,
With great power
with great power
comes great responsibility.
comes great responsibility. It applies to spiritual gifts too.
Yeah, love that. So it's not just about identifying our spiritual gifts.
Mhm.
It's about, discerning how to use them for good.
Right, because ultimately it's not about the gifts themselves,
Yeah.
but about the impact that they have on the world around us.
And that impact, should be one of love,
Yeah.
unity, and serving others.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into spiritual gifts,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with something to think about.
Ooh, I like it.
Okay. If you were to identify your own spiritual gift based on your unique strengths and passions,
Okay.
what would it be?
Mm-hmm.
And how could you use it to benefit the people around you?
It's a good question.
It really is a question worth pondering.
It is.
Because we all have something unique to offer, some way to contribute.
Yeah.
The challenge is discovering that gift.
Right.
And then using it to make the world a little bit brighter, a little bit kinder, a little bit more loving.
It might be a gift for teaching or encouraging or creating beauty or offering practical help or something else entirely.
Yeah, the possibilities are truly endless.
Endless.
And remember, it's not about comparing yourself to others
Yeah.
or trying to become some kind of spiritual superstar.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the unique way that the Spirit works through you
Mm-hmm.
and then using that gift to make a positive difference in your own little corner of the world.
So go out there.
Yeah.
Embrace your gifts.
And let's build a world.
Let's build a world where everyone feels valued and appreciated and empowered to contribute their own unique talents.
That's a world I would love to see.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I think together we can make it happen. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shining your light.
Keep those spiritual gifts flowing.
Absolutely.
I see.
See, it's so easy to get caught up in thinking that our contributions have to be these big flashy things,
Yeah.
to really matter.
Yeah, we can get caught up in that comparison game.
But what if it's actually the everyday acts of kindness,
Mm.
the small gestures of support, the simple willingness to just listen to someone
Yeah.
that truly make a difference?
I think that's a really beautiful thought. Sometimes the most profound impact comes from those small but really meaningful interactions.
Yeah, it's like that saying, be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
Oh, I love that one.
We never really know what someone else is going through.
Right.
So even just a small act of kindness can have this huge ripple effect.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. This idea of using our gifts to serve others actually connects back to something that Paul mentioned earlier in Corinthians.
Oh, yeah?
When he was talking about how even the parts of the body that might seem unpresentable are treated with special honor.
It's like he's totally turning our societal values upside down.
He is.
He's challenging us to see the value in what's often overlooked or disregarded.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that true worth isn't determined by outward appearances or social status,
Right.
but by the genuine love and care that we offer to others.
So maybe discovering our spiritual gifts isn't about identifying some grand talent or ability.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's more about looking at the things we naturally gravitate towards,
Yeah.
the things that bring us joy and also happen to benefit the people around us.
Yeah, it could be something as simple as having a knack for making people feel comfortable.
Right.
Or being a really good listener.
Uh-huh.
Or having that talent for organizing and bringing order to chaos.
Right. And those might not sound like superpowers,
Yeah,
but they can be so incredibly valuable within a community.
they really can.
Yeah.
And when we use those gifts with intention
Yeah.
and with a genuine desire to serve others, that's when they truly become spiritual gifts, a reflection of the love and grace that's flowing through us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I just want to encourage you, dear listener, to embrace those unique gifts that you bring to the world.
Yeah, don't underestimate the power of your kindness, your compassion, your creativity, your practical skills.
The world needs what you have to offer.
It really does.
And remember, it's not about being perfect
No,
or having it all figured out.
it's about progress, not perfection.
Yeah, it's about taking those small steps, using our gifts in whatever ways we can, and trusting that those efforts will make a difference.
Even if we never see the full impact of our actions,
Right.
we can trust that those ripples of kindness and love will spread further than we can imagine.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the world of spiritual gifts.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep shining your light.
And keep those spiritual gifts flowing.
See you next time.